Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. When I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology and went on to earn my clinical mental health counseling degree and even become a national certified counselor, I knew I wanted to bridge the gap between competitors and mental health professionals. Too often, athletes are told that they can't compete and have a healthy relationship with food or their body, and I absolutely disagree with that. I have helped thousands of women globally to build more than just a body by combining psychology, personal development, mindfulness, and my signature Peace Through Growth process. If you are struggling with the post-show blues, or you're struggling with adherence to your prep, or any aspect of your relationship with food, your body image, or overall commitment to your goals, I have tons of resources available for you over at www.celestial.fit. Things like a free food relationship coaching series, free post-show blues coaching series, a full competitor card deck with statements to use for affirmations, journal prompts to go through, and even action and behavior changes that you can implement right away. I really believe that by prioritizing the inner work and developing a healthy mindset, competitors can have a more fulfilling journey. And I know the mental side of this sport is really key to establishing longevity, ending the yo-yoing from show to show, and really establishing goals that span well beyond the stage. If you're looking for that support, head over to www.celestial.fit, where you can find tons of free resources or even apply to work with me. Today, we will be speaking with an athlete whose background in dance and theater supported her in pursuing bodybuilding and satisfying the desire to perform and be on stage. She competed for the first time in 2016, where she won the overall, then went on to do another regional show where she placed first and missed the overall by only 1 point before going on to place last in her first national show, which sparked a fire to climb the ranks over the years with 4 more national shows, and then her most recent and 5th national show, the 2022 Junior Nationals, where she won her pro card. After this, she went on to compete in 3 pro shows with a 3rd place finish, 13th place finish, and 8th place finish, which is super impressive for if you want to say a rookie season. But she also owns her own hair extensions company and color company in Wisconsin. I'm really excited to have her on. So welcome to the show, Samantha Beauvis. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing so good. How are you?
Awesome. I am so happy to have you on and just can't wait to dive into your journey in life. And before we do that, I love to ask if there's anything you do or think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Oh gosh, there's so many. But I would have to say, like, the number one thing that I do that's so important to me is I'll actually call home and call my mom. And the first thing that we do is we pray before I even head to the stage. And it's just kind of that thing where it's like, okay, like no matter what happens, we're putting our best foot forward. Like, we let it all go. It's out of our control. We're bringing our best. We're showing up. We're going to have fun. So that's like the number one thing that I do. And then right before I hit the stage and I start walking out, I just kind of say another few words to God and let it rock.
Wow. Have you always had a strong faith?
Honestly, when I was younger, I would say not as strong, but as I got older and through my shows, I actually had changed my perspective the last 2 years on what my faith was. And instead of, sitting here and praying about how badly I want to turn pro or how badly I want this placement, instead it was like, okay, but you're here today. It's another opportunity. And it's something that not everybody gets to do. And so just to be grateful and thankful for how far I've come, just that day. So I would say definitely has gotten stronger over the years, and just so much gratitude for being able to do the sport with all the women I've met.
Oh, I love that. And I can relate on some level too. Like, I feel like my faith has really evolved over the years. And there were times that I went through really, really hard things that made me question my faith. And then recently I had some really incredible experiences happen that kind of opened my eyes to see that I've always had a relationship with God. It just didn't look like the relationship with God others have. And so I doubted or judged it or didn't let it just be what it was. And so I can understand, like, when you do tap into that present moment, that gratitude, and you really reflect on everything that you have in your life and what a blessing it is. And honestly, what a miracle it is that we get to do this. It does connect you to that higher power or that type of source energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better. That's so spot on.
Well, I love that we can relate on those things, because no matter what you believe in or not, I think it's just that gratitude piece that you're driving home that really, really sticks out to me in terms of your journey, because you had such a great journey to the pro league. I mean, multiple attempts to win your pro card, and people will look at competitors and they'll say, oh, that girl won the overall, she's for sure gonna go and get her pro card. But for you, it was 2 attempts in 2017, then it was time off, and then it was requalifying in 2019, and then it was consecutively competing for 4 years with that drive to earn the pro card. So what was it that drove you to want to achieve it? Let's start there.
So that very first national show was what I call my humble pie. That coming off of doing my very first show, winning the overall, headed into our second show and missing it by 1 point. You're kind of at an all-time high. You're riding that high, like, okay, yeah, this is my sport, this is it. And I thought that going to nationals, it was like, well, I've already won locally, so I've had to have made a name by now, right? Oh boy, was I wrong. My husband's my coach, and he prepped me. He's so what I love most about him is he's just so bold, and he prepped me for failure. He's like, you never know who shows up. He goes, and you never know on the day. And he goes, and that day 100 other girls could look better than you. It may be the best for you, but it may be someone's very best. And so, going into that show, I was prepped for a little bit of a heartbreak, but I didn't think it was going to feel the way that it did. And so that, like I said, was my humble pie. And I was like, okay. And if you were to talk to my husband and ask him, the first thing I said, I was like, this sport's not for me. And it was like, oh my gosh, you are so young. You barely are starting out. You just need time. You need time, you need feedback, you need growth. You need to just like fully submerge yourself into the sport in order to go in the direction you want it to go. So after that, we immediately had a game plan, and we were going to hit junior nationals in 2017, which going from very last call, actually, I didn't even make a call out. They said, and the rest of you to the line. So that right there was like agony to the heart. So going from very, very last place to 7 months later, I hit first call outs, and I was so excited that my posing went out the window, and I bumped myself out to 7th place. So, wow. But I still, taking 7th place was like taking first place in my eyes. Going from last to 7th was like, oh my gosh. So we laugh about that still, because it's like, yeah, remember that one time you almost made 5th place at your second national show, but then you bumped yourself out? So
wait, what do you mean you bumped yourself out? Like, when you said you got too excited?
My posing, I got so excited. Like, imagine Beyonce walking to the line for first call outs, and her hair's just flowing, and she's got that swag walk. She's feeling it. Like, that was totally me. And then I got to the line, and I totally started like peacocking my chest out. I was almost doing like figure poses as a bikini girl. It was, I was so excited that I completely like lost I wasn't even focused on what I needed to do. I was just like, oh my gosh, my number was called. So that was, yeah, that was super funny. And from there, we just, each show we had a game plan, and obviously the plan is to only move up further, right? Like you don't want to fall back, which sometimes that happens, but just to, as long as you can continue bringing your best, even if you're not moving forward in placing, but you're improving your physique, that's all that really matters. So we continued on, and the show after junior nationals in 2017 was USA's out in Vegas, and I went from 7th place out to 16th. They stopped placing after so many, and so again was like that heartache of, okay, wait, what just happened? But again, it may be your very best, but someone else can be better, and so it all depends on that day who just happens to have the best look and what the judges think fits the bikini criteria that day. So I had taken some time off. It's really important to get that feedback. And in order to continue to show up and move forward, you have to take the feedback. You have to take the time off. That involves putting on weight. That involves growing, like in all aspects, like physically, mentally, emotionally. Like it's all very draining to do show after show. And so the one thing we always focused on, and you're going to hear me say we, because I always refer back to my husband and I, because we are a team, is just, even if you're not on stage, that same mindset and the same mindset that you're putting into your prep, you need to carry it through all aspects of your life. So as I took time off to grow and do what my feedback was, I took that same exact mindset and I put it into my business, and I grew my business. And then, there's like financial goals, and it's like, let's pay down this and let's buy this. And so I think it's very important for athletes not just to hound in and focus on one thing being that shows. It's, you have to apply everything in life with the same mindset. Otherwise, you're not going to be as successful as you think.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that perspective too, because there's part of you that like didn't necessarily see that coming or think it was for you. And then you had your husband, who's also your coach, who really believed in you and pushed you, which is very cool and rewarding. And I like how you said that you guys are a team. Now, has he always been your coach?
So the very first show that I did, I had a macros coach who helped like give me my macros, but that's when I met my husband also. So he helped me with my lifting, my posing. He kind of tweaked a few things because I was still so young in the sport. I'm trying to understand like dieting, that he did kind of hands-on grabbed and was like, okay, this is going to work best for you. Or, maybe this is easy for you. But yes, he has been, I would say, all of our 13 shows together, he's been hands-on and taking control over them. So I give so much thanks to him, because he's, it's not just, oh, I'm your husband at home. It's like he's wearing all the hats. It's not just, oh yeah, we'll coach when we're in the gym. I mean, it's around the clock. And there's even some days where I'm like, okay, like stop looking at me. Like, let's just be normal for a second. But it's great. It really is great. And I appreciate him beyond words. So.
Oh, well, he's definitely appears to be very supportive, and just hearing you talk about him that way, it sounds like he absolutely is. And I know like there must be some of that difficulty, I'm sure, for him to turn off the coaching hat and for you to turn off the client hat and come together as partners. So how do you stay connected in that aspect without necessarily like the whole competition focus?
Yeah. So, the nice thing about how we work is we've really focused on, when dieting, I'm never deprived of anything. And I know every person and everybody is so different, but we've really taken the time. Like even in my off season, we took about 2 years off, and we just taught my body how to eat. And it wasn't bulking in a negative way, but it was like all foods, all red meats, all lean meats, like fishes, like really just going all into it, so that when I am dieting, I have no problem doing a date night with him because it fits within my diet plan. So then I'm able to turn off that, like, oh, I'm in prep, I'm an athlete right now. And instead it's like, yeah, well, tonight let's do salmon on the grill and let's like have some sides with it. We're very flexible with that. And so it's, when you get closer to your shows, it's a little bit harder, but then your goal is there, and when we understand that. But during the actual prep of it, it's nice because it's not uncommon for us to continue our date nights and even go out to restaurants and just order your food a little more clean and stuff. But that's definitely made it very, very easy for us to do preps for that reason.
I love that. I think that's such a good insight for people to know. Like you can have it all in a sense of, especially if this is your lifestyle and it's something you're committed to long term, you get used to knowing your body and tracking your body and tracking the data if you are, mindful of those things. So now you can go into those situations feeling empowered versus restricted or like, oh, I can't do anything. And yes, it's harder closer to a show, but it's awesome that you guys have that relationship and he's respectful also of like your longevity.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one thing we've always really stride is and take pride in is like health first, no matter what, health first. And I've always done lab work beforehand and afterwards. And like I can honestly say, because we've done things right for me, there's never been any consequences. I've never struggled with any health problems that were out of our scope. And the little things of like, oh, your immune system's down because you're getting tired and lean and closer to a show. But besides that, no, I don't even feel like I'm on prep half the time when I am training for shows, just because we've made it so comfortable for our lifestyle that it really just works well.
How do you think that's influenced things like body composition, energy, gut health, those types of variables?
It honestly has helped tremendously for the fact that like it's I'm not eliminating any foods out of my diet really. We clean it up, but gut health overall, because I'm still doing clean fats, I'm still doing, lean proteins and everything like that. I've never really struggled in that sense. And then also like body composition, post shows, there's a small reverse phase, but again, because I've never restricted like carbs or fats or anything like that. And of course, everything serves a purpose throughout your prep, but I've really never had faced those struggles just because we're keeping them in throughout, the whole entire length of the prep to where my body just quickly reverses out, no problem.
I love that because I've worked with a lot of competitors on their relationship with food and their body image and how they commit to their goals. And I hear horror stories sometimes about having to go so restrictive in a prep. And I did that myself too. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know how it goes. And
Yep.
I think it's more of a downfall or a detriment to that long-term vision when we're so restrictive, because if it is our lifestyle and as competitors we want to be able to maintain that performance and strength and focus, because it's a year-round sport and every day is practice, but like
Mm-hmm.
you've established something that works for you, you had that support from the beginning, which is really awesome, and that that's beneficial for you. So what would you tell someone who might be in a position where they're following something very restrictive, it doesn't feel sustainable year round? How would you encourage them to feel comfortable with engaging with maybe a more flexible or all-inclusive approach?
Yeah. So, and I actually have a lot of girlfriends who have faced this, getting out of shows and kind of transitioning back to what their normal life is. And one thing I've always told them is like, food is just food. It's just food. It's how you look at it and how you want to have that relationship with it. It's never going to go anywhere. So for those who struggle with, oh my gosh, I was so restricted that now I just want to engorge in all the good foods. It's like, your chocolate chip cookies are never leaving this world. one's not going to hurt you, but maybe a whole pack will. So it's like forming that like positive relationship on like, okay, it's always there. It's never going to go anywhere. Like you can still have that healthy relationship with foods that would be off meal considered. But then also like making sure you truly find a coach that works well with you. I can't stress that enough. Again, everybody has what works for them. Every body is different. So what works for me might not work for someone else. And I get that. But really making sure you have a coach who understands nutrition, and it's not just for shows. It's for nutrition for a lifetime. I mean, this is like teaching, even these girls coming in are very young, inexperienced, learning, and they're so eager to learn about this sport that I think every little thing that gets thrown at them, they absorb it and hold on to it really tight because it's like, well, so and so does this much, so that's what I should do. And it's like really just making sure you have a coach who understands like the longevity of your health is far more than any show that you will put your athlete through. And if you're going to carry them through a prep and give them a diet, then you better make sure you show them how to eat post show, because it's now just changed their world and you feel very lost getting out of shows if you don't have that guidance.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's important to have that consideration and compassion for that transition phase, because it's not like you just come off the stage and you're like, well, some people do, and you're like, oh, this hunky dory, yay, everything's great. But we have to recognize like we go through this intensive experience. It's like puts us on a high. Then you come down from that after the achievement or after you get off stage, where you do have to adjust and you set new goals and you have a new focus, and we have to be prepared for those changes.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to ask you too about just going back to your husband really quickly. What do you think other spouses who might be listening would need to know or could benefit from knowing that would help them to be more supportive of their partner?
Like the first thing is, if this is a passion of your spouse, you need to have that open communication of like, this is, like for us, it was, I want to do shows. Great. What shows are we going to do? What's our purpose and what's our why? And along the way, can we continue to live our life, or do we have to stop and it be all about me? I think it's really important that even though you're doing prep and you're doing a show, you still need to make your spouse feel that they're wanted and that they serve a purpose, even though they're not the ones on stage. Vice versa. I mean, even, for my husband, he hasn't stepped on stage in I don't know how many years, and he never plans to, but he knows that this is something that I have fun doing. He has fun doing. So that support and keeping it positive is going to make it more of an enjoyable experience. There's a lot of couples out there who probably don't have a spouse that's in the industry. So it does become a little bit harder because almost in a naive way, they don't quite understand the commitment. But that's where you need to sit down and again, just kind of game plan it out. Like maybe walk them through what you're doing and why you're doing it so that they do understand. And for spouses who aren't in the industry and just are there for support, ask questions, get to know what they're doing, why they're doing it. Maybe ask if you can help in a way. Can I help you make your food? Is there something, can I go do the grocery shopping? Or, just trying to be involved in ways that are easier for them to have that communication, and then also just keep it a positive relationship too.
Absolutely. Like making sure it's positive can only really come with that communication. And sounds like you guys have really prioritized being on the same page, making sure that the expectations and intentions are understood. And that's speaking from both sides, like as a competitor, also considering that your partner has needs and is important in this, because it can be easy to get into that laser focus. And I think that when I was working in a counseling center and working with couples and families, what would often be of benefit is to do check-ins and to communicate needs with each other and to see how you're feeling or the relationship is going, because it's easy, like I said, to get in laser focus. And I'm sure there's times where he probably feels that way or vice versa. So it's nice to be able to discuss those things openly, knowing both of you have the best intentions.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So there were times throughout your journey where you were like, okay, I need to have a diet break or have some time to have some fun again. So I was kind of hoping you could detail for us like how life looks in different phases, or maybe when those things are called for, and how you support yourself in remaining committed to competition goals while also enjoying some more of that maybe freedom or time, or like letting go of the control a bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We love to travel, and with traveling obviously comes normally more like exotic, eclectic foods. And so that's one thing that even if I am um goal driven, set on shows, and we're ready, like it's so important to still have that mental break and to really make sure that you're prepared to head back into your season or whatever it may be. But for us, like a good example was after doing junior USAs and junior nationals this year, where I earned my pro card. Immediately, my heart wanted to jump into pro shows. And that was kind of our goal when we said if we turned pro, like right away, we just start doing it. But at that point, I knew mentally I needed a break. Physically, I could have kept driving myself and I had the strength, and that was completely fine. But mentally, I needed to almost disconnect from that drive in the gym. And it's like I had reached my goal of getting that pro card, but it was like mentally I need to take a break and just reset. And so what that looked like for us was I had about 2 weeks where it was in between like 4th of July weekend, and we have a cabin up north. So the one thing I told my husband, I'm like, let's go up north, let's start some campfires. If that involves having some drinks around the fire or on the boat, so be it. But I have no shame in, making sure that I fuel my body in a positive way. And if that's a little bit more than what would be on your diet, so be it, because your body is going, at that point, your metabolism's fired up, and it's going to continue to burn just as quickly as if you were on a diet for a show. So I completely just, on my mental breaks, cut that whole diet portion out, and I kind of intuitive eat. And if that means some days are a little more snacky than others, so be it. But I've really let myself focus on not making it such a priority to get every single meal in, or everything is hit in your Fitness Pal app and all that. It's just really what I feel at the time is what I want.
Absolutely love that. And I think it's important that we can take inventory of what our needs are and reflect on like, what does this time in my life require of me? And sometimes stepping back before we hit that I need to step back zone is actually more beneficial, because then we're not stopping because we're burnt out or run down. We're stopping consciously, so then we can actually, like, instead of recharging from a dead phone, so to speak, we're recharging from like 20%.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so how do you structure your schedule day to day to support your goals? Because you're also running a business. And so I'm curious, like, what does that look like for you to really get the most out of it?
Funny you ask. So what that normally looks like, being a business owner, and also being in the hair industry, I am appointment based. And so I do have that luxury of like putting in blocks to where I can continue to get my meals in throughout the day. But really, we don't have enough time in our day. And so that forces me to get up earlier to make sure that I'm structured throughout my day and making sure I'm hitting all my goals. So, really just starting my day off early. And there's something about waking up early in the morning, knowing that you're awake before most people in the entire world, and just focusing on how you're going to set the tone for the day and how you're going to really just make each day the greatest.
Love that. So having that routine of reviewing your goals and aligning yourself to them every morning has really supported you, and then outlining what your day would look like.
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome. Now, let's go back to when you actually won your pro card. Was it as gratifying as you imagined after all those attempts?
Oh my gosh, it was. I get emotional still thinking about it
Yeah.
because I as you saw, I have done several national shows, and I truly wholeheartedly wanted to get my pro card at Junior USA's. The promoter of that show is friends with my husband, and we are just, they're such great people, and everybody in this industry is, but being that we're friends with them, it was really kind of special to try to get that pro card there. And so this spring, when we missed it and I took second, I was just so completely lost. I was like, I don't really know. Like, do I continue on? Do I not? Like, we're right there. But again, who's to say the next show somebody doesn't show up looking better? And
Yeah.
so there was actually a little bit of fear heading into junior nationals, because from the outside looking in, everybody just thought, well, you got second place, so obviously you're going to get first. But because I am more of a realist and I like to think, realistically, what could happen, what are the options, and knowing that this is a bigger show and competition could be better potentially, for the first time heading into a show, I was very uncertain and a little on the nervous side. And even being at junior nationals, everything went so smoothly. We actually drove down to Chattanooga. We made it this really big road trip and like enjoyed every moment of it. But I remember being backstage and thinking, oh my gosh, like, if you don't get it, you're done. Because I had said if I didn't get my pro card before I turned 30, then I was done competing. And so there was that little bit of moment where I was like, you don't know if this is going to be it. And then looking at our feedback from Junior USA's, I actually Brian and I had to undo my physique in order to turn pro. So it was kind of a backwards feeling in a sense where I had brought my very best at Junior USA's. And when I think it was 4 or 5 weeks later going into junior nationals, we actually had to undo my physique to then win a pro card. So there was a lot of um mental bogs that were going through our brains, like, how is this possible? How do you, I don't want to say you worsen your physique, but we had to undo certain things in order to place higher. And so there was a lot of uncertainty. And so then when I was standing on the line there, my husband and I reviewed photos, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, it could go one or two ways. He goes, you might have second. And so I remember in between intermission and finals, I was laying in my hotel bed, and all I could think of was, and your runner up, Samantha Beauvis. I'm like, dang it, I am prepping myself for second place. And I think that was just to like lighten the load of like, if I got second place, don't cry. And so
Yeah.
when we got first place, I I actually started to dry heave, and I covered my mouth because I was like, oh
Really?
my gosh, this is actually happening. I did. It's super funny. There's a video clip, and they called my name and I dry heaved. I was like, oh my gosh,
That's
this is me. This is our
awesome.
time.
You have to
So
send me
it,
that. I don't know why I've not seen that yet.
oh, I like covered my mouth so fast, and there's some photos of me too getting my pro card, and I immediately covered my mouth because I was like, A, my ugly cry is gonna come out, and I don't think the world wants to see that. And B, it was one of those where I'm like, I think I'm gonna throw up. Like 6 years to get this, I think I'm gonna throw up, but I didn't have anywhere to do so. So I mean, it's funny looking back at it now, but it was so special. The photos that were captured and the videos, I mean, I can't even, to this day, I get emotional looking at them, because that moment was so special. And yeah, it was something we worked so hard for, and to finally get it, that was it. That was the icing on the cake.
I'm sure. I can only imagine that that was a moment in your life, especially because you had been kind of mentally preparing yourself to not win it again, which is also interesting. And I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times the story is like, I knew I was gonna get it. I manifested it. I focused on that. And you're like,
Yep.
I was just preparing to lose again.
I was. I was. I think because, you know, I've never lost a local show, which is incredible and I'm so
Yes.
grateful for. But there's still, when you get to that national level, these girls come out of the woodworks. Like, the social media platforms that we have now really expose a lot, which is great. But at the same time, there are some shows I get there and I'm like, all right, where were y'all hiding? Because you were not anywhere on my Instagram page. So I always, and maybe it's a bad thing to do, but I always prepared myself for the worst, because then the best is just so much better.
I can see that. Some people are definitely more motivated by pain than pleasure as well. So you're
I
like, I
guess.
can avoid it.
Yes.
That's really cool. Well, I love that that moment was so special for you, and you did take some time off after 2017. What were you focused on between 2017 and 2019 before going on your consecutive attempts?
So between those 2 years, we obviously knew what we needed to do with our physique. And so a lot of that just include look like, you know, taking our leg size down, and over the time period was going to be what was best for us. There's certain things that judges tell you to do, and it's not going to happen overnight. And so we took the 2 years off to focus on what that feedback was, but then also other parts of our life too. We were recently engaged, so going through our engagement, enjoying our engagement. My husband owns a renovations company, so we were we were in the middle of like his company just starting. We flipped our rental house, we got married, so there was a lot of other things in life that we wanted to focus on and enjoy before heading back into doing shows. And I think it's super important for athletes to realize, like, again, you need to take the same drive that you have for your prep and apply it to all aspects of your life, just so that way you can be successful as a whole and not just individually at one thing.
I really love that point too. Like, making sure we actually do take the time to utilize our strengths as competitors in other areas of life versus only applying it to competing. And I think in that, there's a lot of emphasis on celebrating who you become in the process rather than the results. So what do you feel this journey has taught you about yourself, or maybe even provided to your life?
I would have to say, like, through all of it, to celebrate like all the wins. Just each show has been different and has taught us something different. And just to really take the gratitude from everything, that all the joy that it's brought us, and just focus it on everything in life, such as like my business, my husband's business, things like that. Like, just really being grateful for having the opportunity to do everything as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of our listeners did want to know how you would describe yourself in one word and why you might describe yourself that way.
Oh gosh, one word. I would have to stick with a name that I was given when I was younger. My grandma nicknamed me Sassy, and I would have to say that that's probably, if there's one word to describe it, would have to be that for sure. Um, and a lot of that stems from when I was younger. I was very independent as a little girl, but I was very into music and dance and art and all that. So I was very sassy in production, and that's kind of just how the name grew.
I love it. I was going to ask you actually about your stage presence, because it's like you've got this beautiful smile and this confidence, and you just look like you're having fun. And I was curious if bodybuilding has satisfied the passion you missed from dance and theater in the way that maybe you thought it would.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
Oh,
I think for a lot of girls, like being on stage is probably like the funnest part, right? Like everybody likes the glam and the glitz, and being able to be on stage is probably one of the highlights of your whole entire prep. But yes, being that I had a strong dance background and that I did do a lot of like theater work, it definitely has satisfied that because it was never something I was shy of. I know for a lot of people it can be nerve wracking being on stage and, you know, the presentation part, but that's the one part that always came very natural just because I did have so much experience in those categories.
interesting. Okay. So when it came time to make your pro routine, I bet that was exciting.
It was but I had a friend of mine, her and I were talking about it and how, and she's also done a ton of shows, and is still striving to get her pro card. And I admire her so much. And we were talking about doing a pro routine and what that might look like. And she told me, she's like, don't reinvent it. She's like, Sandy turned you pro off your routine that you did at junior nationals. So why change it and do something crazy, elaborate, and maybe like all this extra sass? She's like, don't change what turned you pro. She's like,
Mhm.
that's literally why you turned pro, is because that routine fit best that day. So when it came time to doing the posing routine, my husband and I spent so much time working and just fine tuning everything and just perfecting basically the routine that we brought to junior nats that turned us pro, but just making it more concrete, more, you know, everything was flowing very nicely and all angles were, you know, complementing what we were trying to do. So we had a lot of fun doing it, but we really just kept it basic so that way it wasn't anything where judges lose the attention and they're kind of bored with it, or maybe it's too over the top.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great point. I mean, we even saw that at this Olympia. Like, I don't believe that Maureen even walked to the back in
No,
her.
she didn't. She didn't. And
Yeah,
I think everybody feels, at least I know I did, like that was the one thing as an amateur looking at the pro girls, it was like, oh, the bikini girls get to walk to the back. And I was so excited over that. And then seeing Maureen didn't even walk to the back, I was like, oh, why did we get so excited about walking to the back?
right? Yeah, it's so true. Like watching the pros do their routine, you can get so much insight. Like even watching the other divisions, there were some of the, if I recall, I believe it was in men's physique that I was seeing, some of them would really not hold certain poses as long, and you could tell they were hiding their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's very important that we don't overcomplicate things, even as amateurs. And like your friend said, you earned your pro card off of that routine. And you just have this great stage presence, anyways. And sometimes that stage presence alone can do all the talking as opposed to like trying to add in all these extra moves or
Oh yeah.
it's
Yep.
like if you bring it for those couple of poses that we need to do, which is a front and a back pose at the end of the
Right.
day, then you're good.
Well, and the more time that you spend practicing, the better your presentation will be. You know, we've had my husband's coached other girls who maybe don't have the dance background that I have, and that's, you know, kind of the first comment they make is like, oh, you know, it's I don't pose like that. And it's like, but the more that you pose and you get comfortable, the better your routine will be and the better your presentation will be. You don't have to have years of experience dancing or theater work to be able to get on stage and do a front and back pose. You just have to make sure you put in the effort and the time to nail your front and back pose and deliver it perfectly in front of your judges.
How did you figure out like your best stances?
A lot of work. We've
Mhm.
spent my husband's been my posing coach from day one, and so the evolution of our posing has definitely improved. Back when we first started in 2016, it was like the hip splice where you literally had your hip falling out of socket because you had it so far to the side.
Uh-huh.
So I think through phases of what the bikini division was and what it is now, like you kind of see the poses go in and out of style, and no one really does that pose anymore. Now it's more to the side. So for us, it was figuring out what side is my better side and what's going to complement that through transition poses and getting to the back. So there was just a lot of hours spent on, okay, walk out, set up in your front pose. Okay, walk back, set back out into your front pose, and just making sure you hit it each time, and knowing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and how you can hide or enhance certain things too.
Amazing. Like you said, it's the practice.
Yes.
Now, when you look back on your journey, are there things you wish you would have known that you think would have made a positive impact or difference in the process, or maybe things you wish you had known or thought about sooner?
I can't say there is, because from the very beginning, with my husband having the knowledge that he does, he really let me know every aspect before getting into it. I mean, there wasn't, most girls do a show, they get done with the show and they hit that post show blues and they're just so upset and they don't know what to do and they're lost and they're looking for the next thing. And it's like, he prepared me every step of the way for like what's going to happen before, during, and after each phase or each show. So there really isn't anything I would say that I wish I would have known or that we would have done differently, because we've always just had goals and timelines of how we, like, our order of operation and how we do things and how we achieve things. And so I always knew based off of what our plan was on how things would plan out for us.
Love that. I think that right there is even just good insight for people listening. And something that I think is also really cool about you is your own business and your background in styling. And you had made a post saying like you really felt you found your stage look with the hair and the makeup. So how did your work as a stylist maybe play a role in finding that best look?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to be able to do my own hair and makeup show day. I know a lot of women spend the money on the very talented makeup artists there are out there. But that was something for me I always just wanted to perfect and I wanted to do. And I took pride in knowing like that's what I do for a living. So I wanted to basically be the example of my own work. And I think over time, as phases and trends go, makeup styles come in and out, and same with hair. And I had tried the straight look a couple of shows for my hair, and I didn't feel as confident as what a soft curl had given me. And then even with like the curls too, there's so many variations of how you can have your hair curled. And it was really for me more of like that old Hollywood feel, having a little bit more of a glamorous, more volume, more softer curls around the face. That really made me feel like that was the look. And then same with makeup. When I did my very first show, I kind of thought like, oh yeah, let's do the silvers and smoky eyes, and realizing not every skin tone works with every shade. And so over time, just playing with makeup and figuring out, okay, these colors complement best. This is going to work well with your suit color. And it all plays into effect of how you're going to present yourself that day.
Well, I really like that. And I actually was thinking too, we kind of have to be willing to experiment. And sometimes a look, it makes us feel different too. Like it makes us feel better, more confident. And it sounds like that look really embodied an energy that you wanted to bring to the stage.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, what are some things competitors could consider in deciding the best hairstyle or makeup for themselves?
One thing I would say is like, if you are someone who has like finer hair, like just really understanding like what your hair does and where it can go to on like expectations of show day. So if you're somebody who has like super fine hair, maybe consider adding some extensions in to help create more volume, maybe a little bit more length. This way it's going to look more complete when you are on stage and showcasing your beautiful physique that you had just worked for. Also, same with makeup too. Sometimes doing too much can hinder your overall look. So just sometimes simple is more. Making sure that your hair color complements your suit color, your makeup isn't going to match your jewelry in a sense where it's like all this glitter and glitz all over your face. So really just kind of setting aside time and deciding like, maybe you're scrolling through Pinterest, maybe you're scrolling through Instagram, wherever you're getting your inspiration photos and looking at like, okay, these girls have the same hair color. What looks good on them? Or even looking at some of the pro girls, like, not everybody can rock the fuchsia colored suit that Maureen had. And it like, if you're somebody who resembles her, it's like, maybe try on that suit, maybe try the look that she created and see if that's going to work best with you.
Yes, I love that. It's like you can gain inspiration from seeing people who maybe have similar skin tones or facial shapes or physiques or maybe stage presence as a way to inform what you try, rather than trying something that's totally not likely to work on yourself.
Right.
Instead, don't waste the time, like use what's proven. And I love how you said, if you have fine hair, maybe get extensions. That's something I personally did this past year. And you could just see, like, in comparison to past shows where I didn't have extensions, it just added depth. I didn't do it for length, it was for depth
Mm-hmm.
and volume. And I think that made a big difference. And then I think it can also probably be influenced by like the shape of your face as well, because I imagine if you do like a particular, like you did a curtain bang, right?
I did, and that was something new. I've actually never had a curtain bang for stage. I always thought I needed this long length with curls away from the face, and actually adding that little bit of a curtain bang opened up my face shape in a way that I've never had in any of the other shows.
Yeah, and I'm not a professional in this like yourself, but I do believe that Maureen had a curtain bang look at the
Yes.
Olympia as well.
He did, yes. And it just worked so well. Actually, she was my inspiration to cut my curtain bangs. It wasn't obviously the Olympia show that just happened, but there was a show, gosh, I don't remember which show it was, but she had a teal suit on. And I'll never forget, I saw one of her videos and she had just this gorgeous curtain bang, but it was almost like a waterfall off to the side. And it was stunning. And that right there, I was like, I think I'm going to cut bangs, which is so scary for any person who doesn't have bangs. But at the
Mm.
same time, I was like, okay, this could be a good thing. And I'm so happy I did. And I'm sure you're like just as happy as you are with your extensions. Is like it totally gives you a different sass to yourself and like a different style.
Absolutely. Like you can almost even look at different photos of pros with different hairstyles. Like you look at Maureen with the Chicago Pro and she had that like curtain bang, and then she changed it for Battle of the Bodies, with which is Janet's show, and she had like the side bang, and it was a complete, almost like a different energy. So I personally am like, oh, I don't, that's not my favorite part of the sport, in all honesty, the look, but it matters. We have to bring the full package because we do work so hard on our physique. We owe it to ourselves to bring the glam and the confidence and feel really great about what we're presenting. And so those details matter, especially when it comes down to that. So did you get feedback, by the way, on those changes, or did you ask about what they thought?
Yeah, so funny thing is my feedback on my hair and makeup has always been don't change a thing. And I was like,
Hmm.
well, I feel like I'm not quite there where I wanted it. But I think because I still brought a polished look, the judges were still rewarding me in the fact that like hair and makeup looked great. You don't have to change it if you don't want to, kind of a thing. For me, being the stylist that I am, I was like, I think I can improve it. But it was only in like little bits. Like I never wanted to go extreme to where I went from blonde to brown. But it was like, okay, I think I can just like push it a little bit further to find my favorite look. The only, honestly, the only feedback that I ever got regarding my hair was because I am a more muscular woman and I have very broad shoulders. And I had a judge suggest using my hair to cover up and to soften some of like the vascularity and the hardness and density in my shoulders. And unless you are told that specifically, I wouldn't recommend doing it because it can kind of close off your physique if you're not somebody who has a more broad physique. But that was something turning pro and then doing the pro shows that my husband and I really worked on in my posing was like using my hair as a prop because it did help soften in some of those areas that I needed it to because we had no time to really to make drastic changes.
Love that. Now, did you do like what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a dress rehearsal to test this look, or did you just go for it?
Oh no, there was lots of dress rehearsals. there was there was lots of dress rehearsals. Lots of different products I went through. I actually found that I brought hot rollers back. Hot rollers was what
Mm.
was the staple to that whole entire look. And then always it's kind of a tradition for me, like the night before a show, right after check-ins, I do a mock trial of my makeup. So that way I know exactly the next morning how I'm going to do my makeup for show day. So there's a lot of mock trials that go into it.
I love that. I think that's so important. Like testing my makeup because I was only did it myself starting, well, I've done it myself now since 2020, and like testing it over and over again helped me even just gain confidence in the process of putting it on. And like that can ease a lot of the stress, and then you can see what works for you. So I think it's really cool that you did that and you are doing that. And now I know you had gotten some feedback after your most recent show as well. So with that initial pro season being successful, at least I would say that was a successful season, I'm wondering what you're focusing on now and what your goals are moving forward.
Yeah, so our goal was always to turn pro. Honestly, that was like my number one thing was like by the time I turned 30, if we did not get that pro card, I was done because it was almost like the next chapter in life, being a new decade. And so it was always the goal to turn pro and then follow through with pro shows. It just happened that that happened to be a little bit later in our year. So honestly, this was one of the highlights, I would say, of the whole entire bikini career because we've decided that after these pro shows, we're actually gonna be done. I'm
Whoa.
gonna I know, shocker. It
Wow.
was always it was always our goal to turn pro and to do a few pro shows and who knows, maybe later on, years and years down the road. But this was kind of always our goal. Just because next year I really wanted to focus on my business. My business I own by myself. There's a lot of different things I'd like to see my business do and to grow, and I have all these visions on how I want that to be successful too. So for now, at least, unless we change our mind, that was the chapter for bikini career, and we're going to start focusing on other things that life has to offer for us.
Wow. That's really, really cool. I love how you're taking this and in stride and like, okay, I'm going to apply this to these other areas. So let me ask you then, what is it you want to see yourself achieve in your business?
So the main goal for myself would be to one day own a building. So right now I currently rent a suite and those are super popular for hairstylists. but there's something about having your own building, having the equity in that investment. So that would be our next step, is to find a piece of property, to grow it and make it my own, maybe get a few other girls in there, to generate more business and more beauty for clients in the area. And that right there I would say is like my number one goal for my business and where I want to see it go.
You sound very excited and content with this and with hanging up the heels for now.
I am. We've always had, like I said, it's always been planned out. We've always had goals and mile markers on like what we needed to achieve. And this was the longest season we've ever done, doing 5 shows. And our month of October, the 3 of those shows were back to back -1. We were home one weekend and then gone for shows every weekend of October. And so we really hit it hard. We enjoyed it. We had so much fun. And it doesn't mean that, I'm gonna leave the bikini world ever. I actually plan to start posing with girls next year. And just do maybe more of a behind the scenes. Maybe I'm doing hair and makeup for competitions or whatnot, but it's definitely time to take a break and to focus on other things and live life a little more freely. There's a lot of restriction that goes into it, and yeah, just time to enjoy life in a different perspective.
Wow, that's so awesome. I just love that, because I think there's that tendency to have that pressure of like, well, you turn pro, now you got to compete in the pro league, and then you got to go for the Olympia qualification, which I would say is the majority of pros and people and competitors' goals. But when you really look at it, a lot of people do achieve pro status and take a step back, or they feel like, okay, I fulfilled it, I did what I wanted, I became a professional athlete. So I just love that you have that drive and that ambition in other areas of your life too to fulfill, and you're still going to be contributing to the industry.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. It definitely is bittersweet, but I think when you have that goal in mind and it's not something that's completely thrown out of left field, like we've just always known, like the ultimate goal was to turn pro, and anything after that was a bonus. Like I said, bittersweet for the sense of like, now I'm getting to meet the pro girls, and just to have the relationship that I've met, with the girls that I've competed with in just the short period of time. They're so incredibly sweet. And that was one thing I kept telling my husband during Olympia week, is like, the girls that were at Olympia, I've met, like I've been on stage with them. I've shared stories with them. We've laughed, we've taken pictures. And so it's very bittersweet and humbling to know like the girls that were at the Olympia, and girls who maybe should have been there, it just meeting them and having that friendship. And I hope that we continue to have that, because they're so sweet. And so that part is bittersweet, because I feel like I was so late to the bus to finally get there. But that's the beauty of social media and your platforms, and being able to connect with them in that form too. So I'll still be around, and I'm still definitely rooting for everybody. And now I'm just the cheerleader on the side. And yeah, it's fun to be on the other side and now get to watch other people achieve their goals too.
I love that. And honestly, what's cool about this industry is we can all find ways to stay involved or contribute. And now I hope this isn't coming across in any way of a suggestion, but I do think it's a really great asset of yours, your background in styling, where even just the insight you provided on this episode of like how you can choose what your best look is could be a really cool addition to the competition world, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing I've kind of thought about, is like, with at least the girls that are local and that I'm closer to, it's easier to kind of bounce those ideas off. But definitely maybe showcasing more through my business how to choose, what's right for you in hair color and cut and extensions. And I would say a lot of my clientele actually are women who have competed. I've met so
Oh,
many girls Yeah, I've met so many girls who are pretty local, maybe 50 minutes away or so, but they make the trek over to get extensions with me for their show. So I've
Oh.
felt very honored for a lot of them to trust me and my talents to be able to give them that look so that they can compete and have their dream hair.
Oh, I love that so much. I just love your passion and that drive. Like I said, it's so awesome. And I've appreciated everything that you've shared. And before I ask you for your best advice, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so. You asked some very good questions.
Oh, good. I thought this conversation was just super flow and awesome, and
Yeah,
you're so
yeah.
easy to talk to.
Yeah, no, it definitely, it was just kind of flowing. I'm like, gosh, I don't even feel like you're like asking me questions.
That's awesome. Well, let's get your best advice then. So, what would be your best advice for someone who's never competed before but would like to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
For best advice for someone who has never competed and is looking to compete, I would have to say find the balance in your life before moving on to doing a show. Like make sure you're grounded on who you are and like really make sure all aspects of your life are where they need to be in order for you to move forward and do a show. Just so that way, when you are done with a show, you can jump back right into your job and maybe get that promotion you wanted, or, maybe you're working on building a house or saving for a house. And after that show is done, it's like you still have goals and other aspects and like jump right back into like where you're wanting to see your life go. And then again, take that same mindset and apply it to your prep so that you can be as successful as you can. And then for anybody who is turning pro or trying to turn pro, honestly, never give up. I know that sounds so cliche. Like there was I think 3 years or 4 years in a row, we did junior USAs. And I thought that show was going to be the show we turned pro. And I would only do it and then we would be done and break. And then the next year I would do that show again. And it was like, obviously that wasn't where we needed to be, but I never lost sight. And it was just like, okay, like you fall down, you get back up. You fall down, get back up. Like no one says you have to stay down there. Like your placement doesn't define who you are as a person. Just take it as a learning curve and grow from it and make the changes that you need to. And like I said earlier in our talk, like for me, a lot of it was like changing my perspective. Like, I used to get so upset, like I thought I was turning pro. And it's like, well, change my perspective. Be grateful that you have the opportunity to continue to do show after show after show. Some people don't get that. Be grateful that you get to eat. For me, I got 7 meals a day. So it's like I changed that perspective of like, you know what? Instead of hounding in on how I'm not turning pro, look at all the things that I'm able to do to turn pro, hopefully one day. And that's exactly what happened.
Love that. Well, that is just such great advice. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and talk to us and share your insights. So, how can people connect with you moving forward, support your business, and follow your journey from here?
Yeah, so I plan to continue, obviously, like you said, like supporting the bikini girls and stuff. My company page, my hair page, I do have an Instagram page for that too. So for anybody who's looking to do extensions or kind of need advice on their overall look for show, definitely to reach out in that aspect. And I would be more than willing to kind of go over what's going to work best for them and how to give them their best show day look.
Love that. Well, I appreciate you again for being willing to do that and coming on here. And I'll definitely put all that information in the show notes page. Guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. You will not only find all the links, but you're also going to find a full breakdown of the episode, topics we covered, as well as timestamps. So that gives you the opportunity to go back and listen to your favorite parts, or even share it with people that you know. So that way we can shine even more light on these incredible athletes and support each other in this industry, because it's truly such a beautiful community. And I'm so grateful for all of you listening. And I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just keep it up.